Have you ever felt that no matter what you do, something inside keeps holding you back, like an invisible weight limiting your choices, emotions, and even your happiness? What if I told you that the key to unlocking this potential isn't outside of you but in the wounds you carry from your mother? It might sound controversial, but the very pain that hurt you the most could actually be your gateway to spiritual growth. Jung believed that what we reject carries the greatest power for transformation, and wounds tied to the mother are especially potent. In this video, you'll discover how understanding these wounds can open the door to self-awareness, authenticity, and compassion you never thought possible. From an early age, we learn to see ourselves through the mirror our mother holds up for us. When that mirror constantly reflects criticism, the child's sense of self develops cracks that are hard to notice at first. A simple phrase like, "You never do anything right," can echo for decades, shaping beliefs about not being enough. Even as people grow up, change their environment, and build their own lives, that inner voice shaped by maternal criticism still whispers in key moments. It's like carrying foggy glasses that distort every success, making accomplishments feel smaller than they really are. Emotional absence is quieter, but just as impactful. When a mother is physically present but emotionally distant, the child learns to doubt their own worth. It's as if the unspoken message is, "If she can't see me, who else will?" This emptiness often leads adults to seek constant validation in relationships, careers, or social media. The more they search outside themselves, the more they forget to look inward. Over time, this can feel like chasing a shadow, never fully grasping the recognition they're longing for. Over-control can feel like care, but it often becomes a subtle trap. A mother who dictates what a child wears, studies, or even how to feel, takes away the chance to explore independence. Years later, adults raised this way often feel paralyzed when making decisions on their own, as if every choice carries invisible judgment. Surprisingly, many still feel the need to ask permission, even when their mother is no longer around. These patterns quietly shape how life is experienced, often without the person realizing it. These three types of wounds, criticism, absence, and control, show up in repeated patterns, often unconsciously. Adults may sabotage opportunities because deep down they still feel they aren't good enough. Others jump from relationship to relationship, blaming the other person, while their internal void keeps sending signals. Every reaction in the present is, in part, a replay of unhealed past experiences. Understanding these patterns is the first step toward breaking the cycle and reclaiming control. Behind these scars, there's often a hidden map guiding us toward deeper self-understanding. The things that hurt most, the experiences we resist, carry secret invitations to growth. Only by facing these wounds head-on can we begin to see the guidance they offer. And it's here that the next stage begins, transforming pain into opportunity, shadow into insight, and past suffering into a path for growth. Pain often feels like a heavy weight with no real purpose, something we want to hide or avoid. Jung teaches that what we resist, what frightens or unsettles us, is exactly where the greatest growth lies. Life places these thorns not to punish us forever, but to teach us to walk more consciously. When we see that a mother wound isn't just an obstacle but a signal, it opens the door to self-awareness that can be life-changing. Suddenly, what felt like punishment becomes a chance to evolve. Consider someone who has always felt rejected for not meeting their mother's expectations. At first, every critique feels like a personal blow. Over time, it becomes a cycle of self-sabotage. Jung would call this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we hide or reject. The hidden call in pain is realizing that the very weakness that seems like a curse actually contains the key to liberation. It's like discovering an old map that seemed useless, only to realize it leads to a hidden treasure. The wound stops being just a wound, it becomes a guide. Facing our own pain requires courage because it isn't comfortable. It's far easier to blame circumstances or others, to distract ourselves or to escape. Yet those who accept the challenge see that every painful emotion points to something essential: personal growth. A simple exercise is to list recurring painful patterns, reflect on when they occur, and ask what lessons they might hold. Over time, pain stops being the enemy and becomes a quiet advisor, always guiding toward emotional maturity. The beauty of this process is that when we face what we've rejected, patterns that repeat in life become visible. What once felt like bad luck or unfairness reveals hidden lessons. Jung said the shadow doesn't disappear on its own. It needs integration. Suddenly, every internalized criticism, emotional absence, or controlling influence from childhood becomes a signal for what our soul needs to develop. What once felt heavy now acts as a compass. At this point, the path naturally leads to individuation, the process of integrating the shadow. When we start to see pain as a messenger instead of an enemy, insights appear, clarity emerges, and even unexpected moments of lightness surface. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle come together, revealing a bigger picture. The mother wound transforms from a mark of the past into a gateway for exploring deeper aspects of the self. The shadow isn't an enemy. It's a part of us that lives in the dark corners of our mind, holding fears, frustrations, and unresolved trauma. Jung teaches that ignoring it only delays growth, but integrating it is the path toward individuation, becoming whole. When we recognize our shadows, childhood wounds connected to our mother no longer silently control our choices. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly you see the furniture, the obstacles, and all the possible paths. Individuation is this light, transforming scattered fragments into inner harmony. Integrating the shadow demands radical honesty with ourselves, confronting recurring patterns and uncomfortable emotions. For example, someone who struggles with jealousy in relationships might realize it echoes childhood competition for maternal attention. Recognizing it without judgment is crucial, because acceptance opens the door to transformation. Jung noted that the shadow also contains untapped talents and strengths. What once seemed negative can become a source of creativity and personal power. Individuation shows up subtly but powerfully in daily life. As we accept our wounds, we begin making authentic choices without seeking approval from others. Simple actions, saying no without guilt, choosing work aligned with personal values signal progress. It's like learning to walk confidently on our own, one step at a time. The mother wound ceases to be a burden and becomes a tool to build a coherent, meaningful life. Shadow integration also fosters empathy and understanding of others. Those who reconcile with their own pain are less likely to judge others harshly. It quietly transforms relationships. Criticism becomes acceptance, rigidity becomes flexibility. People living this integration often feel emotionally lighter, carrying less weight and seeing the world with fresh, compassionate eyes. As this process continues, the next step appears. Real-life stories show that integrating the shadow helps people find meaning even in emotional crises. Pain, once seen as punishment, transforms into learning and self-discovery. This ongoing journey invites reflection on each experience, showing that every wound carries seeds of growth. And it's through these personal experiences that we see the power of practical transformation. Some stories seem ordinary, but hold profound lessons about mother-child relationships. Maria, for instance, always felt she wasn't enough, carrying silent criticism from childhood. Her relationships often failed until she took a hard look at her own pain and understood its roots. By reflecting on recurring patterns, she realized many choices weren't hers. They echoed internalized maternal expectations. This awareness allowed her to transform suffering into meaningful self-knowledge. Another example is Jung, who grew up under a controlling mother. For years, he feared making decisions alone, feeling paralyzed by indecision. The turning point came when he began writing down moments where fear dictated his actions. Gradually, he understood these blocks were reflections of old patterns, not his own failures. Journaling became a powerful tool for self-healing. Anna, on the other hand, experienced constant emotional absence from her mother, driving her to seek external validation. Praise felt fleeting, recognition temporary. When she started meditating and observing herself without judgment, she realized she first had to acknowledge and care for her own feelings. This shift allowed her to recognize her intrinsic worth and form healthier, balanced relationships. These stories show that painful crises can be transformative. The key is identifying repeating patterns and taking conscious steps to reinterpret them. One practical exercise is to note situations that consistently frustrate you and ask, how does this connect to my family story? Reflection turns life into a continuous learning journey, where every wound carries hidden lessons. Applying these practices brings small daily changes that lead to major transformations. Those once trapped by maternal patterns discover freedom in small choices, saying no, embracing failure, or following paths aligned with their true self. This freedom naturally leads to the next stage, the spiritual benefits of turning pain into awakening. When we understand and embrace the mother wound, something surprising happens. Pain becomes a gateway to spiritual awakening. We start seeing that suffering isn't just personal. It's part of a universal learning process. Every tear, frustration, and feeling of inadequacy becomes an invitation to develop compassion, first for ourselves and then for others. It's like the heart slowly opening, recognizing that everyone carries unseen wounds and deserves understanding. Self-awareness naturally grows, as facing pain forces us to examine old patterns and internalized beliefs. Someone who always felt inadequate may see that their insecurity isn't their fault, but the result of unresolved history. Accepting this allows them to act authentically, pursue goals aligned with values, and no longer be controlled by external expectations. This quiet transformation changes how we see ourselves and the world. Compassion appears in daily actions. Those integrating these wounds understand that judging others mirrors unresolved pain in themselves. Simple acts, listening attentively or helping without expecting anything in return, become natural. This ripple effect creates healthier, deeper relationships. Every compassionate act also represents a step in personal healing. Authenticity is another gift. Actions previously guided by fear of disapproval give way to choices aligned with true self. Deciding freely, expressing genuine feelings, and pursuing meaningful goals become everyday courage. The wound stops being a burden and becomes a compass, guiding choices that reflect who we truly are. Finally, spirituality emerges as a deep sense of connection to ourselves and the world. Pain, once a source of suffering, becomes a catalyst for growth, self-awareness, and compassion. Each traumatic experience carries lessons. Fulfillment comes not from avoiding wounds, but from integrating them and transcending their effects. This awareness opens the way to deeper introspection, personal power, and a conscious, evolving life. Now that you've started to recognize the marks left by your relationship with your mother, ask yourself, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue carrying the same pain silently, or will you use every memory and scar as a guide to transform your life? Start today by identifying one pattern that keeps repeating and ask, how does this reflect my wounds, and what can I do differently? Small conscious steps create deep change, and the first step is always looking inward without fear. Apply what you've learned, write about your experiences, recognize recurring patterns, and practice self-compassion. At the end of each day, ask yourself which actions reflected authenticity rather than old conditioning. The more you practice this, the more life is guided by self-awareness instead of unconscious repetition. It's an invitation to live lighter, more consciously and genuinely, discovering that pain can be a powerful teacher. What if you could see your wounds not as something to hide, but as signals pointing to your path? Every challenge, every frustration, every pattern that holds you back carries clues about who you are and who you can become. The question is, will you ignore these signs or will you start listening and acting on them? The answer is in your hands, and the power to change is yours. Imagine living fully integrated, making choices freely without being chained to the past. Picture healthier relationships, wiser decisions, and a sense of emotional freedom you might not even remember existed. Each conscious step is a quiet but powerful victory, and small daily changes build a future aligned with your true self. If you're ready to start this transformation, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue exploring these topics and deepen your journey of self-awareness. Share in the comments. Which wound are you ready to face first, and how do you plan to turn pain into growth? Answering these questions is the first step toward a more conscious life, and here you'll find tools, examples, and inspiration to walk this path without facing it alone.